I can't see you, but I can hear you. So I thought we'd try something. I figured it out. I need to promote you to a panelist. Um, but it looks like there's just a couple of us tonight. so, so it might just be me talking a lot of the time. but yeah, so today I've got it on record, so I'm going to speak as if I'm at the webinar with a lot of people. But this week is all about teenagers, and they can be complicated, but they can be really easy at the same time. It just kind of depends on which ones you get, obviously. So I'll start with the ages, and then I'll go through. So I've got all the information there on the week about individuation and the soul journey and what that is for a teenager. What I haven't really gone through is the ages, because everyone really is at a different point through teenagehood. And generally it begins with, you get to it begins with the high school journey, really, which is a bit of a shame because, teenagehood becomes more about high school than it does about the adolescent journey. So you get to high school and it's all about settling in with new friends. And because you've got kids most of the time from other schools, all hitting at the same time, plus you've got the hormones and everything else. So can be a bit of a challenging time, and that's where all our biological pack stuff starts to come out. So it's present there a little bit from age 7 through to the last couple of years of primary school, but then it really, really kicks in high school, where we're really starting to try and find an identity, and who am I in the group, and if I'm accepted. That's the other big thing. So if other people accept me, then I accept myself. Which is, on the spiritual journey, we try and avoid that, but you can't really. And that is also the key point, because we're going through a spiritual journey as well. The teenagehood is the time to explore the ego. So it's not about keeping them on a spiritual journey. It's about keeping them connected to who they are while they're exploring the ego as well, because they're not going to be able to avoid that. Sorry, I'm just going to, there we go. So we can chat, Suzanne, but I've just put you on mute for a second just while you're doing other stuff in the background. But yeah, so 13 we hit high school, and this is big separation age, because you've got kids who've gone through, a lot of early puberty, and then you've got kids who are still a couple of years off. So it really, it's that really flux of, you've got the really immature, and then you've got the really mature that all think that they're really mature. And all will tell you, no, I don't have any issues, I'm good. And because it's reflection is kind of hard at that point because of the development of the brain. So the prefrontal cortex, so up here, is still maturing, and so they go in and out of fight or flight. And when things get overwhelming and when emotions get overwhelming, then they go into fight or flight really easy. But that prefrontal cortex is often overwhelmed, so the ability to reflect on things is really hard. So unless something is there and pressing, they're fine and there's nothing wrong with them, and there's no dramas, and dad's fine and mum's fine and it's all okay. Meanwhile, like, their whole body language is saying, no, it's not okay. So you got to get really good at guesswork and talking about things as the human journey rather than their journey. And so that's my key thing with teenagers, is explaining to them about life and explaining to them about personalities and different experiences, and helping them understand the world rather than what they should or shouldn't be doing. And very much lots of whys. That's what they need at this age. Not just yes or no because I said so. Like, that's not going to cut it anymore. So from about 14, the parent's role, and it's easy for me to say because I'm not a parent of a teenager, but the parenting role does really cease. And so as far as, speaking back to me and all that kind of stuff, like it's not your issue anymore. Your issue is keeping the communication lines open. And that's where a lot of teenager and parent relationships I see go really awry, is because the parent is still trying to, obviously you've got to put in boundaries and yes and no, you can't go there and everything. But because I said so isn't going to cut it anymore. There needs to be explanations why. There needs to be, everything needs a reason, and then the child has to have some sort of power in it as well. And trust. So where a parent it'll make the whole journey a lot easier if you can just keep communication and trust open and say, look, go screw up. I'm here. I'm not going to put you in danger. So I'm going to give you this amount of leeway, but the rest of it is up to you. And the rest of it is boundaries versus what's up to you. And you'll sort that out as parents and with the child and where they are in their journey and all that kind of stuff. So you've got 13 and they start to kind of really push that. And that's probably the hardest, that 13, 14 is really like, well, you're young, or you're younger than your friends are, or you're older than your friends are. And so it's just managing that, really. I don't know about the rest of Sydney, but drug use here on the Northern Beaches is really huge. So try and get really educated on the different types of we're seeing your screen, Suzanne. I don't know what's happened there. Okay, hang on. Here we go. I might just, okay. There you go. That'll make things better. Sorry. Hi. So there's a thing that most 13-year-olds, not most 13-year-olds, mostly 13, 14-year-olds are trying, because they can get it from a chemist. It's okay, Susan. You get it from the chemist, and they get basically Dimetap or something like that. It's a cough mixture. And it's called lean, and they drink it, and they call it lean because they zone out and they lean. So it's pretty, it's just experimentation with drugs, and it can be dangerous for them, of course, and not really good for their liver. And it leads to, it does lead to other drug use usually. And then you've got the prescription pills that they're stealing from their parents, or selling there's another one besides Ritalin, but Ritalin as well. So they're experimenting, some of them, with those kind of drugs. And you can definitely work with a psychologist on all of this, but what I like to do with them is try and find exactly what they're searching for in that moment. And some kids, it purely is excitement, and so we need to help them find a passion and a purpose. And then other kids, it's, for fitting in, or because they're stuck in a crowd and they don't know how to say no, and all that kind of stuff. So find the motivation and talk to the parents about that. And then educate the kids as much as you can on what they're taking, because most of them don't even know what it is, or what the effects of it is. So definitely lots of, liver damage, blanking out, and then the mental issues that come with all of that. Um, what's the other one? Datura is a plant. You learn a lot from from working with teenagers. Um, it's a plant, and they make a tea out of it. And that's actually quite hallucinogenic, and it'll open up the crown chakra, and it can be really dangerous. So it's one of those things that even when I was a teenager, it was like, smoke weed, but don't take Datura. um, so I came from Griffith, by the way. So it was like, it was just, it's a psychotic drug, and it's not okay. And you've got to really focus on grounding and detoxing the body after that one, and closing off that crown and brow chakra again, or balancing it out, I should say. And it's often when you're working with teenagers, especially in the younger years, you're definitely working with the parents as well. Hopefully as much as you can. And I'm actually quite honest with teenage parents at the moment as well, because I've gone through 10 years of working with them, and I've gotten frustrated so many times. And there's a very clear difference of the children who get sent in because they're self-harming or suicidal or depressed and anxious. If the parents, particularly the mother, aren't working on themselves, I see the kid through 19, 20, 21. If the child and their mother are going through the self-reflection journey together, the whole dynamic shifts. And these are the kids where 17, 18, they come back, they're grounded, they've got heaps of support. And it's not just all your fault. And so it's easier to come back to who they are. And like I said, with that spiritual journey, they feel held when their parents are going through stuff and accepting they're part of the journey as well. And I say to parents, imagine how it would have felt if your mum had have at least tried. So there's that aspect. The other aspect is 13 and year 7 is such a huge hit as far as overwhelm goes with schoolwork. If they're so inclined to that, it's a huge anxious period for keeping up with schoolwork, first assignments, the pressure of exams, the overwhelm of going to different classes all the time, and then the friendship changes as well. And then the hormones make you feel vulnerable, and it's just this huge catalyst. So just explaining as well, look, this is the first change you've had in a long time, and it's going to feel really weird for a while. So you can do a little bit of fight or flight work as well, but usually it's mostly just helping them to find techniques and tools that work for them as far as learning and structure of assignments and stuff goes. So I have a couple of tutors I refer to as well. But you can definitely set stuff up with a kid, and mostly it's just a confidence thing. And this is also another time where that left and right brain stuff will pop up. So the kids who are really good at English and art versus the kids who are really good at maths and science and can't really seem to get the other one. And so you go back to the left and right brain hemisphere connection there. So you've got 13, the hormones hit as well. So making sure that the liver is really clean, especially at home. So, checking out, often it's like during the day you can't really control, but you can definitely control breakfast and dinner. And making sure that they're really, really aware that, it's good to bring up the skin here as well. So, if you want to avoid acne, you got to keep your liver clean. And you got to keep on top of the probiotics, and lots of foods with nice fats in them as well. And some kids are drinking coffee at like 14 now, and it's not good for their body. So get them on the green tea. What else can I say? Sorry. So 14, again, they're going into, well, it can be 13, 14, they're going into year 8. Year 8 and 9 are the worst years. Like, as soon as a child comes in and they say year 8, year 9, you're like, sorry, kid, a couple of years, it'll get better. There's just so much ego going around, identity. Everyone's doing the self-esteem thing. And so my big thing is, particularly with girls, is describing what happens with self-esteem. So the thing that we aren't taught often as women is that everyone's so worried about themselves, they're not worried about you. And if they're worried about you, it's because their self-talk is so bad themselves. So, for instance, if I'm worried about my nose, I'm going to notice everybody else's nose and I'm going to judge you for yours, and it's because I'm judging me on mine. If I'm worried about my stomach, I'm going to be looking at everyone's stomachs and I'm going to judge you on them, and that's because I'm judging me on mine. But if I'm worried about my stomach and I'm fine with my nose, I don't even notice your nose. So the only ones judging you are the ones who have the same issues as you, really. And know that everybody's going through it as well. So don't get so caught up, and it's even worth, picking out the girls that they compare themselves to and say, okay, right, well, you might be comparing your stomach, but is she worried about her height? Is she worried about her schoolwork? Is she worried, and pointing out again that everyone's got their issue and everyone's the same and no one's different. But doing it in a really practical sense, and not just, so working with those beliefs of you are valuable, you are worth it, and all that kind of stuff is nice. Like, use them as affirmations, but at a core level, it's not enough for them. They really need to really understand the nitty gritty of, well, what do you mean we're not different? Yes, we are. It's quite clear we are. And that's because they're going into the whole ego. And then explaining as well that, on a biological level, and I go straight into it with teenagers, there's no fussing about. Like, you just got to go straight in and with talk at them, with them, obviously with them, but you're the one doing all of the talking throughout the session. Most of the time, they're just lying there, pretending to be asleep. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And that's the hardest part I found working with teenagers, is that you don't get much back, especially boys. There are some boys that are, really engaged and want to know more and want to know about crystals and want to know how it all works. But then, a lot of them as well are just, yeah. Which I'm sure if you're a mother, you understand that as well. So 14, self-judgment. Movement of friendship circles again. So everyone's finding their identity and pushing and pulling people away. And there's a lot of replication of circumstances at home. So parents' relationship, I'm going to mimic that now in the school ground. Bullying is another big one with social media. Best way to deal with it, just block them. You don't need to get engaged. And usually within a couple of weeks, the whole thing's blown over and it's all moved on to something else and someone else. So the worst thing that can happen is if they get really engaged with it, because the ones who are doing it are just doing it for fun. It's like playing the PlayStation, like it's just a game. And they love seeing the reaction. It makes them feel powerful. So it's not about you. They're going to find what triggers you have and then work on those. And if they get something back, they're going to feel really powerful. So best just to disengage for a while. And that can be the hardest thing, is convincing them to disengage. So that's where, as a parent, they need to step in and take that all away for a while. The other thing with young teenagers as well is sleep. So particularly with schoolwork these days, they get home, then they have after school stuff, and then they have homework, and then they have social media, and then they try and relax on the computer or on TV. So they're so overstimulated, and by 10:30, they're finally in bed, maybe. And it's just not enough for them. They really need, and there's been this, there was a big article about it a while back in one of the papers or something, about how teenagers aren't getting enough sleep based off, social media and all that kind of stuff. And that is true. But actually, it's the homework. It really is the homework. They have so much, and the assignments are just ridiculous. So it's just a matter of, turn off the Wi-Fi at a certain time, please. Change the password or whatever, so that they can just disengage from it. And then explain the importance of winding down to them as well. They get it, but they don't want to feel left out. And then just point that out to them. You don't want to feel left out. And it's bullshit, because you're not going to miss out on anything anyway. And you can catch up by the time school goes back, with all the group chats. Anyway, so we've got a client this week that feels bullied by a teacher. It depends on, really get all the details on that one. So with teenagers, it's mostly counselling work. So client this week that feels bullied by, it depends on the teacher, what is actually happening. I get what you mean, the teenager, so you're not being able to get much information from it. What else? What other information could you get? Because it just depends. It could be feeling bullied because I feel insecure, or it could be bullied because the teacher's trying to bring out a trait in them that the teacher sees, but the teenager is refusing to see because they see that as a weakness, or they don't want to admit that that's part of their identity. Or it could be bullied because actually the teacher is bullying, and they need to be reported. So it does depend, and you really, just talk to parents basically and see, get snippets of information as you can. Give them examples, okay, so what exactly is happening? Is it that they're talking too loudly? Is it that they're marking all your work down? Okay. So there's a lot of shame there, okay, as well. So I'm wondering if it's more about being embarrassed in front of the other kids. Look, if you could find out from the mum, that one of the best things to do would be asking other parents. And, if the teacher is known for that kind of behaviour, or if other kids have, said, oh, yeah, so-and-so did get bullied in class, or if that child just is prone to a lot of shame. And you could even just explain it in, when you get embarrassed in front of a class, you're going to go into fight or flight, and you're going to shut down, and you're going to view that situation as scary from now on. And so my job with you is to turn off the part that gets scared when you walk into that classroom. And then, also giving them options, make sure you go to your year advisor and talk to them about it. And if you want to, write a report, because, you don't have to put yourself in that situation if you are actually really getting bullied. And the school will always back up the students as far as reports against the teacher goes. School counsellor as well. So your advisor first, and then school counsellor. Take the child really seriously, but also, talk to him about all aspects of, okay, so you've been embarrassed, but then there's also the element of, how do you stand up for yourself in that situation? And then what can you do about it as well? So you've got 14. So experimentation starting, lots of shifts and changes. Year 9 is the worst for girls, the worst, because boys start to get involved as well. So not only are all the issues of self-confidence there from year 8, you've got people entering in relationships as well. And so now the judgment of boys is really important, or the judgment of girls. And then there's the sexuality thing happening, and it's, so that can be another big thing for boys. 15 is often when I start to see kids, this is actually a really important one, teenagers. There is a big one about refusal to go to school at the moment, and each year I get 4 or 5 that they call it school refusal, but it's not. It's overwhelming anxiety. And so usually by the time the kids get to you, they've been down the counsellor part. So the school counsellor gets involved, and then they get sent to a psychologist, and they get diagnosed with anxiety or bipolar, borderline personality disorder, or depression. It depends which centre they get sent to. So like there's a centre in Northern Beaches, and they're big on diagnosing borderline personality disorder. They're really good. But the diagnosis tends to kind of all be the same depending on the centres that they go to. So it's basically one of the same, the anxious kids, which, from my point of view, most of the time it's fight or flight's been active for a while, and then they hit exhaustion point, or fight or flight gets extreme and they go into fear, paralysis. And they literally can't get themselves to school. They can't make step 1, 2, 3. And it's really concerning for everyone involved. The child's really aware of it. It feels really out of control. The school's got pressure on them. And then the parents are at a loss. Why? What do I do? So explaining to the parent, this is a fight or flight response, which they've already been told it's anxiety. So it's all kind of starting to make sense for them. And then giving them tools on how to deal with that. So one of the big things is working with the school. And one of the schools on the beaches is really good at it. And what they do is, because it tends to be in an area where the parents go to school, to work really early. So the kids actually get a lot of time on their own. So there's definitely an element of vulnerability there, and it can be a bit of an emotionally disconnected area as well. So not so much abuse, but more neglect. And so the kids go into overwhelm mode, and they can't get themselves through the school gate because you've got the social aspect that's overwhelming them. They probably haven't eaten breakfast, or so the diet as well, so their blood sugar up and down. All the issues and vulnerabilities from the past are coming up. They feel alone. And the schoolwork has been overwhelming. They can't find their tribe. So the school, in this case, says to the child, turn up whenever you can. So we're going to give you a term's worth of assignments in the first week, so you know exactly what's going on the whole term. And do all your assignments. Don't worry about the homework. And come to school when you can. So, if you can make it by recess, fantastic. And what that does is it takes off that pressure to walk in the school gate with a bunch of people. That's overwhelming for the nervous system. And that's often when they're going to shut down, is that, and I even spoke to a 50-year-old about this the other day who's, highly functional, but he remembers going to school and waking up with that dread feeling and the oh my gosh, I have to get through this, and the fight or flight. And I'm going to speak to you about another thing there Thank you. But I'll come back to it. And so, yeah, so 15 is often when we start to see this all happen, really externally, but it's been happening internally for a long time, usually. So helping them find one or two really good friends as well and nurturing those. So they have a place to go to every morning and they have a routine of, okay, you know, I'm not walking in and going, where is everybody? I don't know where I fit anyway. Do I sit with those people or those people? So just pick 1, 2 people and go to them every morning. And if the school allows it, just turn up whenever you can and, you know, go and sit with in somewhere for lunchtime. So have a plan of who to go to in the morning, who to go to at recess, who to go to at lunch, and who to sit with in classes. So it's finding those security people and finding that tribe again, which is really, really important. And then working on the sugar addictions. So again, blood sugar ups and downs, adrenaline, fight or flight, cortisol, blah, blah, blah. And then also body inflammation. So inflammation will cause, so, you know, your cortisol, what's causing all your physical stresses. You know, are you staying up too late? Are you too overstimulated? Do your hormones need to be more in check? How's your gut health? Lactobacillus rhamnosus, so lacto-RH, is a bacteria which has been linked to decreasing anxiety. And then again, the gut-brain connection. I'm going to do a big section on gut-brain in the last section of this course as well. So you've got all that covered there. But yeah, so that's the other big thing is, you know, helping the body ground itself as well. And then also helping them express emotions. So finding a way, whatever. And a lot of the time you're suggesting stuff and then you're suggesting them again and again and again and again. And just being open with doing that. So lactobacillus RH is that. There you go. Is the probiotic lacto-RH. The thing I've started to notice as well is the pressure to go out, find a career, when most kids don't know themselves as well. And particularly boys. So females, we grew up in this self-empowerment period where, you know, particularly if you're 35 and under, you know, the 80s, you know, we were right in that section of, you know, woman power, and we can do whatever the hell we want. And we really grew up with that. And so girls have got that covered, you know, who runs the world? Girls. And, you know, so that's not an issue for us anymore. We get to go out and we get to choose. Teenage girls' most issue comes down to kindness. Boys, it's all about the motivation. You know, you always get a teenage boy comes in and the mom's worried about their motivation. Basically, they don't want their child to be a dropkick. And I have to talk to these boys and they're so disheartened by the world because there's no place for a boy outside of career. What do you know? What's a male's purpose is to provide. That's it. You know, go out, work, earn as much money as you can, and provide. And most of the time, they don't actually get the chance to even question that, and so they come in and they've got no motivation, and you're like, well, yeah, because you don't want to do what your dad did. You don't want to be a tradie. So what's left? And what I've say to these guys, and this is, you know, channeled and learnt and all that kind of stuff as well, all this information. So we're quite intuitively with people and teenagers in particular, because, you know, well, because it comes naturally, but also it helps talk to them about their journey. So a lot of what I've teaching, a lot of what I've learned is actually channeled through on more of a spiritual level. But these kids don't fit that society, and so they've got to give themselves the opportunity to explore. So it's a matter of, okay, well, if you're not motivated to do this just so you can get a high ATAR, absolutely, first of all, absolutely agree. It's all bullshit, and you know that, and everybody else knows that. But what you're doing is you're finding the pressure of succeeding for no reasons and not giving yourself permission to explore what it is that you like doing. Just because you like something as a kid doesn't mean that you like it as a teenager. Just because you like it as a teenager doesn't mean it has to become a job. But one, find a passion. Two, if you're going to leave school, just find a job. You don't have to find a career. You don't have to do a trade. And making the parents really, pull the parents in on that as well. Because they don't have to, they get the chance to explore. And so many women, join the workforce and then they become mothers and then they get the chance to explore, whereas boys don't get that chance. And so all they see is that all the male role models in their lives have grown up and then shut off or got angry and disconnected because they weren't ever allowed to explore who they really were, or they're not allowed to change their life to be who they are because they're the providers of the family, and without their income then the family's screwed. So men shoulder it just like they've shouldered the wars, and just like they've shouldered everything else. And I'm not saying but you wonder why we have so many angry men in the world. And so it's not about motivation. It's not about correcting them or giving them techniques. It's about giving them permission to explore and discover and find fun again in life without obligation. Really important one, really, really important one. They just need permission. They just need permission, that's all, a lot of the time. So 16 comes, and usually it's that hump over. A lot of self-harm tends to start around 15 as well. If kids cut that way, it's suicidal. Kids cut that way, it's pain. And Ambo taught me that. So they'll turn up to a self-harm, and first thing they'll notice is where they cut and decide whether it's serious or not based on that. Obviously, it's all serious, but helping them helping them understand that, they're trying to feel, they're trying to cut out pain, but there's other ways to cut out pain. And also, don't be scared of pain. You can't avoid it. Life's going to be painful, so you may as well cry about it. Bring humor into as much stuff as you can. Humor changes the neural pathways about things. So it's just like, oh, you're human. Damn it. You're not going to avoid that. Sorry. It's like, bring as much, it's all okay. It's all fine. And just humor based on that as well. You're not mocking. It's just like, it's such a human thing. What else? Oh, yes, so 16, they reach that hump usually, and they kind of start to get life chugging away again. So they found compensation tools. So it's either, so if they really didn't get through the self-pain, it might escalate at this point and turn into scarier self-destruction. And they're, usually they're the ones that have gone to psychologists already for years. And, you're looking at stints in hospitals, and you're looking at, you're part of their wellness team. And, usually mum and dad have gone to counselling, but haven't really changed anything in the environment and any of the expectations or any of the reactions to the child. I had this brilliant session with this girl once, and it had taken months to get her in. And I'm doing this because it was so horrible. I had this amazing session with this young girl who'd been in hospital, just got out, and I was just speaking to her about the nervous system and how everything she was going through could be related back to fight or flight. And she's felt like she's had no control over her reactions and gone into silly ways of coping. But really, if you feel scared, you can do this 1, 2, 3, 4. And she felt really empowered and really like, okay, right, I can get life back on track. Mum walked in the door and started slamming the teenager because the teenager had gone to her boyfriend's in the morning and the mum didn't approve of the boyfriend. And, there are certain times, you come to a point, and there would have been a time where I would have just like shut down and just kind of let them out. Not anymore. Really, like, that's not what you're paying me for. And I sat down with Mum and I was really serious. I'm like, you've got 2 options here. You can push her away or you can get on board and change your reaction. And there's 2 types of parents I see, and that's what I say. The ones who the daughters get well and the relationship is repaired, and the ones that don't. And the difference is whether the parents have cut out the child or not. I said, she's 16, she's allowed a boyfriend. You might not approve of him, but your reaction right now is not going to be of any use. I know that sounds really harsh, but you could just see it, and I'm not around for bullshit anymore. And I said, are you going to a counsellor? Yeah, we're all going to family counsellors. And I was just like, okay, right, well, something needs to change because all the work that I just did has now been undone because I'm working on fight or flight, and you've come in and you've made this situation really scary for her. You could see her, she was shaking in the corner. And yes, she's manipulative and everything else, but manipulation is a behaviour that comes from not feeling safe enough to express yourself, or even explore who you are. So I know it sounds, quite rough, but I followed that up with a phone call as well, and I spoke to Mum again and I said, look, I'm not sure if I handled that well with you. I was really quite angry and I had to really, but you could just see it, and I'm so over just seeing it. And I said, I still stand with where I'm at. I completely get where you're coming from. And I'm here for both of you. But if you want me to work with her, then we need to work as a team. To be completely honest with you, I didn't see the girl again, but there are sometimes you just got to cut stuff loose because, and hopefully I've given the girl enough value to take away with her eventually. And that's my aim. Because I triggered the mum, but the child's 2 years off, turning 18, and hopefully that moment in time was just enough for her to ground and come back. So when we're talking about rude, disrespectful kids who run away, won't listen to parents, don't care about rules, kids from good families, okay, I've got a real issue with kids being rude and disrespectful who run away, and who are stealing and stuff like that. I'm sorry, they're not bad kids. And the more that you label them as bad kids, the more they're going to go down that path of identity. So they're in pain, they need help. And they don't need to be labelled with mental illness because mental illness is different from pain. And stealing is a dopamine hit. So what are they searching for? They're searching for a hit of happiness. Why aren't they happy? Why aren't they happy? What is going on to make them happy? And I don't care how good your family is, but why aren't they happy? And obviously if it's a good family, it's not completely happy. So why isn't the family happy? Might be very controlled on the outside, but there's got to be something else going on there. So don't let mum rattle off the kid. Don't let her, because what she's doing is she's throwing her hands up in victimhood, you know. My child, my child, my child. I'm sorry, but this is a small child here who's vulnerable. And you've got to remember that teenagers are vulnerable and you can't control them and you can't change what they do or how they speak to you. But what you can do is open your heart and you can be there for them. So I am really passionate about teenagers. I see that it's such an area that goes so wrong and it can go so right. And it's, out there in the world, it's all become about your child's and your teenager's behavior and who they are in society and all that kind of stuff. And none of it comes about what's actually happening here. So the way that I speak to parents is really frank. It's just really frank. No judgment, no judgment, kindness, and your sentences in kindness and openness, because again, it's no judgment. Like, they're just trying their best. They're obviously not, purposely damaging their child. They're there with you to help them. But make it really clear for mum, don't or dad, don't sugarcoat it. Plenty of times, your child is feeling this because of this. So what's going on? Let's talk about it. Your child, and again, same sort of thing, talking to mum. I'm sorry, but your child isn't rude and disrespectful just because of behaviour. What else is going on? Because your child's in pain. Why are they in pain? And eye contact and talk to them. Talk to mum. And, that's where it becomes, you're working. That's why I don't exclude the parents from the sessions, because it's important for that to happen between you and mum. No problem whatsoever about talking straight to mum. And turning it around the session so I'm counselling mum instead, while the child's on the table, if mum's in the room, otherwise spending half the time with mum and talking to mum and having a counselling session with her. I'm big on curfews. Definitely, curfews are fine. Absolutely, kids need boundaries still. They need boundaries in order to feel safe. It's not about giving the child whatever. It's about creating a safe place for them so they feel secure. And they're going to blow up and have arguments about wanting to go to that party. And as a parent, you've got to trust your intuition and know that party's not okay for them. Bring them in. But, this is why. And let's do this instead. And if you're going to blow up at me, that's fine. But I'm still here. But you have power in all these other areas of your life. So saying, I trust you, and teenagers hate this one. I trust you. I don't trust the world yet with you. Or I don't trust that that's appropriate for you at this point. However, from 14, grounding doesn't work. Sorry, it doesn't. All it does, it makes the child turn away from you. Removing of privileges depends on the situation, depends on the relationship, and depends on the child and how far down the road of pain they are at. If you're talking about an emotionally stable child who is happy 90% of the time and then does a few bad things wrong, grounding, remove privileges, whatever it is, I'm talking about kids who are on the path of self-destruction. Isolating them isn't going to work. You're isolating a kid who already feels lonely and excluded from the world. It's not going to work. And it's the same with toddlers, and it's the same with teenagers. It's the same with any kid, really. So it depends on the child. Yeah. I'm happy, according to mum needs to come in for a session. Of course they want a party. Of course they don't want her rules. She needs to let go. She needs to let go, get her own life. Go find some fun. Of course they do. Like, and that's, it's like, well, yeah. What do you want from them? They're going to break the rules. Like, go deal with your own controlling issues. And if you say that in kind of a lighthearted, go, she won't come back, but, I'm over them coming back if they don't want to hear what I have to say. And yeah, and I don't think I'm always right, but teenagers are so misunderstood. That's why there's so many, pain-hearted songs about being a teenager, and that's why we all go back to, and this began because I was working with teenagers, but also, majority of the clients that I have been teenagers and have trauma from teenagehood. So every session that you do in a child work, which is every session for me, there's trauma from teenagehood. So you get to know teenagers and their needs pretty well, based on that. And working on inner child stuff with people. 17, 18 becomes about HSE management. So that's all about balance and health and nurture. Usually friendships have settled down by that stage. It's not as much drama. It's all just about management and stuff. And then 18, let's see you later. So the soul and the ego, Suzanne's asked about that. So quickly before we leave. So we're born, we integrate with our soul, and then we become, if we're safe in the world, we become a pure expression of that soul. And then that soul starts to explore the dimensions of the family. And then it comes out and it explores the dimensions of the world, and it's starting to learn, okay, right, so this is age 7, 8, 9. Who am I? Not so much who am I, sorry. It's more like am I accepted to people like me? Am I safe at home? Am I safe in the world? Then they grow up, and then okay, right, I'm starting to feel a little bit stronger now. And now this ego starts to rise from that, and it's like, right, who am I? And remember, ego is fear. So it's that voice that starts to come in. And this is why people start hearing voices in teenagehood. It's the voice that comes in and says, some of the time, sometimes it's schizophrenia, which can be, that's an interesting one. There's a really good guy called Andrew Solomon. He's done a lot of studies with identity and including autism and schizophrenia and stuff like that, and accepting that identity. He's a really interesting guy with podcasts and everything. So you've got the ego that comes through, and it's like, right, I am. And what the ego does here, it helps you separate from your family. So in a really biological sense, it's that time where, if we're using lions, for instance, they're starting to leave their pack in order to start to create a new one. So who am I? Who's my tribe? Who's my ego? I'm done with the family stuff for a while. But at the same time, I'm going to start to sift through it on my own and see what sits with me. So I've been instilled all these values from a child, but do they fit me as an ego? Do they fit me as a soul as well? So it's like, who am I? Who's my identity? A lot of fear. The ego starting to develop those belief systems as well based on the world. So, often you can trace things back that have been repeated from age 3, age 7, age 15. Tends to be those kind of areas where, okay, those beliefs are going to be rock solid in your identity. So, for instance, I've been abandoned. Age 3, age 7, age 15, you see a bit of a pattern. And so the ego, goes, okay, right, I've been hurt too many times in that area, so I'm going to form a belief about that. I'm going to form a protection about that. So the ego's fear, so it starts to protect the soul, basically. Thank you. So teenagehood is about the emergence of who we are, but then forming protection around that as well. And then, the rest of our life, we start unpeeling the protection. So again, that's why we feel so vulnerable in teenagehood. I hope that explains the soul and the ego. Again, it's stuff that just kind of comes through. What else can I say? Relationships with teachers often replace or mimic parent relationships. So figuring that out as well. And then, of course, the partners we choose, we're accepting the love we think we deserve. And so what do we deserve in love? Based off what our parents have taught us that we deserve. What else? Falling in love, heartbreak for the first time, second time. It's awesome stuff to work with. It's so, you just want to give them cuddles and let them know that they're going to be okay and just express it. You're there to talk to. You're there to hold them and help them understand themselves and help the world understand them as well. So have fun with teenagers. So a lot of, talking about areas and talking about life rather than, don't bombard them with questions because they're just going to shut down and they don't know. So, and doing visualizations with lots of color and imagination, unless they're artists, it's not going to work. So just hold points and talk about stuff and breathe. Yeah. So that's teenagers. So I hope I've given you a bunch of information again. And if you have any questions, again, the Facebook page. And I will see you. I think I'm going to change next week because of, school holidays and Anzac Day, and the vote was kind of 50-50. So I'm going to make the call and say we'll be back the week of the 30th. Thank you, guys. So grateful for you. Bye.